But one thing that we must deal with yet again is that as part of the extended lockdown in Greater Sydney, kids can't go to school for another 2 weeks. Again, from the top of the Central Coast to the Illawarra to the Blue Mountains. If you know your geography in Sydney, well, you know it. If not, just trust me, that's a big area.
At every time we communicate something to you, we'll provide certainty. The reason why we wanted to provide that 2-week period at least is so that parents who are teaching children or supervising children from home know that, unfortunately, for an additional 2 weeks at least, their children will need to learn from home.
But there is a slight, and I mean slight, movement that is starting to happen, is that despite the fact that lockdown goes on for the next couple of weeks, some kids might be allowed to go back to school, might at this stage. Of course, they're kids in the final stages of their HSC, Year 12 in New South Wales.
Yeah, look, there are special concessions for Year 12 students, and Health and Education have been working closely together. And I just want to say to families going through supporting a student doing the HSC, please know that every provision will be put in place, every step will be put in place to provide as little disruption as possible.
But here's the deal. As the picture of the virus goes from that big an area to a smaller area and could potentially end up in one particular area of southwest Sydney, there is no excuse for every kid in every part of Greater Sydney not to be going to school. This should be assessed daily. Now, you know my view is that these kids should have been back from day one this term. They definitely should be back in areas like these, because have a look at this. These are local government areas that have bugger all cases. It's basically all over Sydney. Hawkesbury in the northwest has just 4. The inner west of Sydney, so your Newtowns and your Annandales, also just 4 cases in the entire local government area. The Central Coast has 3, yet they're in lockdown. Hornsby, which is the bottom of the same freeway, is 3. On one side of the Harbour Bridge, 3. Just up the road in the Premier's home local government area. Why can't kids go to school? Just 3 people in that local government area have COVID. And virtually none of these areas have unknown cases, by the way. The Northern Beaches has 2 cases, as does Ryde. But could somebody please explain to me why the Blue Mountains, Lane Cove and Mossman in particular, their kids can't go to school? Because literally no one, not one parent, not one teacher, not one kid in any of those areas has COVID. Send them back to school, particularly the Northern Beaches. These people already suffered. Remember Christmas last year? They already had their super lockdown. I'll ask the Treasurer of New South Wales, what's the logic behind that when we talk a little later in the show? Because if you needed yet another reminder about what we've talked about for a long time on this program, kids are affected adversely by lockdowns. A professor today, writing in the Channel 9 websites, said this about lockdowns and kids. Children are making a sacrifice to protect older generations, yet receive no compensation for doing so. Well, you can't pay them anyway. No other segment of society would tolerate this. The importance of schools to our communities and the limited ability of children to have to advocate for themselves demand that all of us consider the burden that we're imposing on children when we direct them to learn from home. Hallelujah.